Hi there, we're going to talk about MLA Basics, and one of the things I found over the summer was something you can actually order it on, yeah, you guessed it, Amazon, and it's APA MLA Basics. I think I paid $3.95 for it. Anyway, not very much. It's all laminated, and it's basically a card you can keep on hand. For how do I cite that? I can't remember how to cite that. And yes, you can look it on up online. The OWL at Purdue is one of my favorite sources. It's excellent. But you can also keep a hard copy, something that's really, really easy. You're not opening multiple windows on your computer. So this is a good option. I like it because, again, it has MLA and APA. We are writing about art, which is going to be, you guessed it, MLA. So I'm going to go over some of the real basics, and we can certainly talk about it in Zoom classes as well. So when we're talking about in-text citation, you might have learned it as parenthetical citation. Some of you are going, what is she talking about? That's basically where you are citing where you got the information. So you're giving a bunch of facts in your paper, and nowhere are there parentheses with citation information. I won't grade it. I will just reject it. I will send it back and say there's no in-text citation. If you want to grade, you need to resubmit this, and it's going to be downgraded, usually 10 or 20%. So you want to make sure you cite where you get your data. That's not just quotations. Maybe you're going to be setting forth summarizing Robert Hughes, the art historian, or maybe you are going to be citing someone directly. I think most of us know if you cite someone directly, yes, you have to have the quotation marks, you have to have the parentheses, you have to make sure you give credit where you got the source. But not everybody seems to understand that if you get a bunch of data somewhere, you're supposed to cite it. And you're not supposed to cite Wikipedia. Just forget you ever heard of it, except for images. It's awesome for images. But there are encyclopedic sources that are good to use. There is a database sources. You go to the Cal State website, fullerton.edu. You click on library. Library comes up, and you click on databases. Has all these different subjects. You click on art, and it will take you to numerous databases, and that's right off the library page. I'll probably demonstrate that via Zoom. And it tends to be only about 10 to 20% of my students actually use it. That database is better than Googling it because you're going to get rid of a lot of the crap. So in any case, I'm going to talk about in-text citation, MLA format, kind of give you a few examples of what you really want to see. The main thing is that if you are citing 3 words or more, that's typically the amount that you have to cite, especially if it's very distinctive. Somebody talking about symbol using animals, well, that's probably a quotation mark. Quotation, you want to make sure you cite it, because otherwise I'm going to look at that and go, that's plagiarized, and I'm going to run it through and I'm going to find it. So don't do it. A lot of times what I'm giving you are things that I found off the OWL at Purdue.edu, and guess what? I cited it. So you need to cite your sources. Again, the main problem with Googling is you get a lot of other junk. Now, if I use Google Scholar as my search engine, sometimes that works pretty good. So occasionally you're going to have to do a little research. Oftentimes I ask for an opinion paper, but here's the key word. I want an informed opinion. That means you should at least have, I would say for a very short paper, at least 2 sources, sometimes more. But 2 is pretty safe for a very short paper. We're talking 2 pages or 3 pages. Then 2 or 3 sources would probably be adequate. If you're writing a 4-page paper, it's going to be more. If your instructor says use 5 to 7 sources, that's your hint to use 7 sources. They may not downgrade you, but they will certainly respect your research skills a lot more if you go to the second number and do 7 sources. So I'm going to move on. So you're not going to do a per se museum paper that's very, very formal. You are going to create docent packets. And so these docent packets, are you going to actually choose you're going to actually choose some works, and you're going to have a theme for those works. And I think it's the best way I know of to have something that's similar but different to the museum experience, because we're all experiencing the museum right now digitally, which is a complete bummer. But in any case, so I want you to also really, really think about your writing structure. People have a tendency to start sentences with it, this, that, because. Absolutely, that is informal. It's okay if you're writing on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. It's not okay when you're writing a paper. You also want to take out I, unless you are writing an art opinion paper where I've said you can use I. You don't want to use I think that, I think. No, you want to state an opinion, and you want to try to bring in experts to support your opinion. Now, again, if it's more informal and I say, yes, you can use I occasionally, what I don't want is you to use I statements all the time, over and over and over and over again. I think that, I saw that, I understand that. You don't want to do that. You want to vary your sentence structure. Usually this or it can be replaced with the noun that you're describing in your paper. You know, and you say something like, it can be easily understood. Well, what can be easily understood? Now you need to, it'll be more focused if you make that change. This is one of many copies of the Sleeping Hermaphrodite. That's one of my favorite artworks. It's a Hellenistic artwork, and I'll show you a picture of it later in this talk. Better, there are many extant copies of the Sleeping Hermaphrodite. Okay, now you notice I have Sleeping Hermaphrodite, the title, wrote in quotation marks. If I don't want to do that, I can italicize it. What I don't want to do is do both. So if you're going to be writing your titles in quotation marks, that's fine. You can also write your titles of artworks in italics, but again, not both. And I will repeat a few times in this, just because I really want you to get it. And what if I need to have the date in there? There are many copies of the Sleeping Hermaphrodite, comma, quotation mark, and then I would have Hellenistic, and then another comma, and then estimated 160 before Common Era. So that would be how you would write that. But we'll practice all of those things. This is a beautiful piece. Again, you need to focus it. So words to describe artwork: sculpture, painting, works of art, artworks, picture, figure, masterpieces. Oh, it's a beautiful piece. I don't know about you. I much prefer producing a work than a piece. And so limit the use of piece. I tend to just arbitrarily go through circling those. It's not uncommon to see a paper that has 10 times the use of piece. And that's a real problem because it's really a lack of vocabulary. So that's a thesaurus moment. I will sometimes even write right across the paper, this is a thesaurus moment. And so you want to really think about using different words. So abstract design, artwork, canvas, cityscape, composition. Even before you start your paper, just think of about 10 different ways to describe the artwork that you're talking about, you know, as far as a phrase or a term. So MLA page format for research papers, or any paper you're actually going to probably turn into me that is typed, which because we're online, it's all going to be typed. But you're going to have 1-inch margins. Oh, but it's late. I think I'll put a 3-inch margin on the bottom and 1.5-inch margins on the side. She won't notice. I do notice. Your professors do notice. So we do downgrade you for that. Double spacing, well, it's late, so maybe I'll do a little bit more than double spacing. Stop that. We notice that too. Well, I'll just make it 1.5. No, just double space, no extra. Don't put extra spacing in between your name. You just want to be consistent, and you're not fooling anyone. I would much rather someone just simply turn in a shorter paper than have all these formatting problems all the way through it, because people do notice. Professors do notice. Even when we're tired, we do notice. And that again is because we're probably looking at 100 papers, and you start to just automatically see it. So that's what it should look like. You should have your name in the top corner, Professor Shriver, Julia Shriver, whatever you want to write. Then you'd have Art 300, and I'm going to request that you have Art 300 and you write the time, 1 p.m. or 4 p.m., whatever time your class is, because I have multiples of writing courses. And then you're going to give it a date under that, and then you're going to give it a title. A title. Almost everything should have a title. Even some of the best journals have the occasional title on the pages. I want you to get in the habit of naming things, giving it a title, and not a boring title, not museum paper, not docent paper. Want you to give it a title. Now, if you want to make sure you label it so I know what it is, and you put museum paper, colon, and then the title, sure. But again, you really want to watch your format. You want to be consistent. You want to bookmark the OWL at Purdue MLA format, and it will take you right there. Everything you need is on that website. It's excellent. So formatting the first page, you do not need a title page in MLA. Just gone. Double space. Again, this is kind of recapping. Our name, your instructor name, course, and date. So again, 4 lines. Double space, center the title. Titles are not underlined, italicized. And so this is MLA that I'm showing. So here's an example. If you're like me, I'm visual. I like to see everything. You see how it has the heading in the corner, Smith 1, page number up there. And again, there's an interesting title, Hell Hath No Fury, Medea. But again, if you so desire and you really want to make sure I know what it is when you send it to me, and you want to put museum paper, colon, and then Hell Hath No Fury, Medea, fine. Okay, a little larger visual aid here because I'm visual. This is one of those sections that there's a lot of words, but I'll try to just simply talk to you as I would in a classroom situation. I think I'm much better in a classroom situation, but again, it is what it is. Here you can see how it looks. And at the end of a paragraph, they've made sure that they include the author's last name in parentheses, and then they include the page number. You will note there is no comma before the parentheses. There is no comma after the author's name. It just is at the very bottom. You can see it has in quotation marks the quotation, and then parentheses, Bradbury, and then the page number, and then a period at the end. Not a period at the end of your sentence, a period after the parentheses. So again, it's minor, but it's all in the details. If I'm preparing a report for my boss, and it's an important report, I want to impress him with my vast knowledge, I'm going to want to make sure it looks pristine. And that includes the format. That includes the details. And I don't think people understand that enough. First impressions of your work, first impressions in general are very, very important. So when citing a book, here you have author last name, comma, Samuel, and then a period. And then you would have, and this would be at the end when you're talking about your works cited page. Then you have happy days, and that the book underlined. And then you have the place of publication, the publisher, and the date. And then in today's world, we usually also write print after it. So in any case, you will see. So again, here's another example: book with one author, author's name, title of book, publication information. Sometimes we will have a works cited page that maybe we want to include some commentary, and you can do that. And there is a format, and that's something I think we'll talk about a little further on, but that's called an annotated works cited page, where maybe you have a short couple lines just to talk about what was key about the research and what sources you use. Maybe you had primary research where you actually talked with the artist that produced the work, or maybe it was some encyclopedia, or maybe there was a really exceptional exhibition book that had a lot of information that was helpful. That would be called an annotated works cited page. But for our purposes, for now, we're just going with the basics. So this is how to cite an article in a newspaper, and this is in the works cited page, which again I will show you a little more detailed what I want. But in any case, I urge you to explore the MLA guidelines on the ALEC Purdue. So this is how to cite an article in a magazine. Again, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And understand, I do not know these by heart. Most people don't. You need to look them up periodically. Now, when you're doing your paper, it starts to come back to you, and you don't need to look up everything. But every once in a while, you have to check. How to cite the Bible in a works cited page. And here it has both an in-text example, and it also has a full citation as well. And so in-text is the first section, and then how to cite it on your works cited page is in the second column here. And so yes, you need to note what edition, what Bible edition that you used, and then you again can write all the details like you can see right here. Very important when you are researching an artwork that has a biblical base or mythological base is to get the background. How to cite a book with 2 or more authors. And so you're going to basically cite them individually, and then whoever has the last name with the, if it's B, obviously he rates higher than a person whose last name, like me, starts with S. So you would use their last name first. So there's an example. And if there are more than 3 authors, you should add the term et al., which means and the rest. It's a foreign-derived word, however, and a foreign-derived word you should put in italics, like sfumato, chiaroscuro, et al. And et al. Is, again, it's lowercase, and it is italicized, and again, that's something you put after the last names. All right, multiple citations. Maybe you want to show your instructor that you actually have been seeing the same information in a few places. Then you can, that is a golden retriever puffing in the background, then you can include both sources. I don't require my students to do this, but if you do, it's kind of impressive. And then here underneath it, it shows how to do multiple authors. That's, I think, a little cleaner, which is Burke, Kleiner, et al. And so, again, the italics. So impasto, chiaroscuro, sfumato, foreign terms are in italics. So when a source has no known author, use a shortened title of the work instead of the author name. And so certainly you could do like the website. For instance, you could write, Norton Simon, or you could, if it's a specific site, the OWL at Purdue, and then the page number. Here's another example. And again, you wouldn't use the number 1 repeatedly. Sometimes people do that. No. So that would be the preferred way I would want it cited. That's APA, not MLA. I would say every single batch of papers I grade, at least 2 people make this mistake. But it's usually higher than that. So again, you need to get those details correct. So again, another error. So some of you might know the term bibliography over works cited page. And so here are some examples of how to cite this on your works cited page. And you notice that I said a plural. It's not works cited, it's works cited. So here is a format for you as far as to kind of help you. All these little reminders. So your last name and page number on the top corner. Alphabetize all sources by name, spell authors' names and artists' names correctly. I catch those errors, so you need to make sure those are right. So I wrote there spell authors apostrophe names and artist apostrophe names correctly. What I'm pointing out here is, for instance, if I'm doing possessive for one artist, I love Vincent van Gogh's paintings. Again, the apostrophe is right before the S. However, again, another example of one artist. The artist style is amazing. Again, it's right after the T. Possessive for more than one artist. The artist style of choice at the Sawdust Festival is predominantly influenced by the Impressionist. And so I'm saying that there's a large group of artists at the Sawdust Festival that are inspired by the Impressionists. And if you've ever gone to the Sawdust Festival, you know I'm right. But in any case, that would be a statement that I would have to prove, but that is just an example of when you are talking about a group of artists versus a singular artist, how you change the way that you show possession with the apostrophe S. So, and I will talk more about this when we start talking about doing a workshop. Now we're going to have to do it online. It's trickier. It's much more fun in class. But even so, we will adapt. To cite museum information that is posted on a plaque or a big sign or the entrance of an exhibition, stuff I found on a museum wall in quotation marks, and then the Getty, comma, Santa Monica, and then the date that you went there. Interesting stuff from a museum site. You can actually cite the specific exhibition if you know it, or if it's getty.edu, that's okay too. When possible, include the author. So if you know the author's name, maybe it's Smith, comma, getty.edu. But sometimes it won't be available to you. Now I posted this last week, and this is simply a reminder that a short paper, a long paper, any paper should have a thesis or a controlling idea. Early in your paper, it's a good idea to have a thesis or a controlling idea. What are you trying to prove? Do not ever at the college levels write, this paper will try to prove, or I am writing this paper to show that. No, just do it. That is something that you do not want to do at the college level. It's right up there with he or she was born in is not the way you want to start an essay. You just go right into it, make a statement, and then the rest of the paper is going to support that statement and try to prove your point of view, which usually means bringing in experts that share your point of view. And sometimes when you're doing the research, some of you will probably know when this has happened. Does your point of view have to change sometimes when you discover in your course of your research that you're wrong? Yeah, sometimes. So then you have to go back and tweak the thesis a little bit, change it a little bit, and then make it work with your sources and your research. All right. So you want to prove it. Now, at first glance, you look at this sweet painting, and I think people are surprised at the innuendo that is in a Rococo work. This is Fragonard's Happy Lovers, produced in the mid-1700s, but there's lots of symbols in here. First of all, a young woman in the mid-1700s would not be barefoot. Oh my goodness, her ankles are showing. It's too shocking. And her hat is off. Again, shocking. And, you know, and they're just cuddling on a countryside. There's nobody there. It's just lovers alone. Again, this would have been kind of shocking in its time. And she's kind of dangling this little cage right above her, and he's holding this bird, which apparently lives in this little cage. And in a way, he's in a cage as well, because he's completely enamored with this young woman, and she has his heart. So in any case, you want to, try to use some of the main themes as your thesis or main point of view. The young boy holds a small dove carefully in his hands. You have my heart in your hands comes to mind when viewing this work. The dove was an established symbol of Venus, the goddess of love. The young girl holds a birdcage in her hand as if to capture love. Certainly sexual love is only a moment away. The hat, tossed carelessly on a pile of hay, is another Rococo sexual allusion or symbol. Sometimes slippers flying through the air on a painting. Those are the sort of things they added. The removing of a hat could also be construed to mean the loss of virginity. So this is when research really gets fun. It's when you can get all the underlying meanings of an artwork. I'm back. So the focal point in this young woman's lovely breast, the way it's even lit that way. There's this band of white, and she's in the center of the canvas. And so you do not miss it. This creamy vanilla skin, which again in this time period, they aspired the aesthetic for art in Western art was white skin in the 1700s, and largely through the 1800s as well. And hopefully that's changing. The work is idealized, very, very, very sweet. Yes, almost saccharine. One of the ways in which you can recognize a Rococo work is when you see a lot of sherbet colors. So in any case, this is Fragonard. So over and over, I've seen students have problems with this. They'll say, Pierre-Auguste Renoir's Promenade is a gorgeous work. And then that's their thesis. That's not a thesis. That's a statement, and it's nearly impossible to prove. It's just a statement. What you want to do is take a position. You want to get far more specific than this is a pretty painting. You want to say something, and then you want to go to some of the experts in your research and find people to support your opinion. And again, I don't think they teach this in English classes and art classes. And so it's very, very important you do not have a general thesis. And you're probably at some point in time going to write, this is too generalized a statement. I'll write something like that on a paper. So again, you want to be specific. You want to be clear. So you don't want to say, Dorothea Lange's photography is fabulous. There's never been a more successful photographer or a more noisy dog. But again, how are you going to prove that fact? So here might be another example that's, again, it's getting specific. It's not vague and general. It's specific. So the sleeping hermaphrodite figures and the hermaphrodite figures with satyrs had clear sexual implications. Yeah, they're kind of hard to miss. Yet the sculptures were also part of a community and culture that considered these figures religious. The mythical stories behind these sculptures are intrinsically woven into the fabric of Greco-Roman culture. And so that's a whole lot more interesting than this is a pretty sculpture. So do you see the difference? So directions that are names, north, south, east, west, Southern California, those are capitalized. If I'm saying just go south down that road, that's not. And then you have family names, those are capitalized. And again, names, obviously, days of the week. And I'm going over these and people are going, doesn't everyone know these? No, definitely not. Holidays, of course, are capitalized. So nationalities, specific languages, again, the beginning of a sentence. Again, a lot of us think, oh, this is obvious, but again, it's not. We all need our review. Okay, so let me move on. So again, to recap, a good writing site is Al at Purdue. Again, whatever your question in text citation, parenthetical citation, which is the same thing. Grammarquick.com. Anything, Diana Hacker is an excellent source as well. And so some of her sites are great. EasyBib.com, a lot of you have done that one. Grammarly, etc. Etc. is, again, also Latin derivation. So yes, that would be in italics as well. I spelled it out for you there. So hopefully this is helpful, and we'll talk more about this in our Zoom meetings and of course email, and I think I'll try to get some exercises there for you as well. So my apologies for the disturbances of my dog. He's a little high maintenance. That's an understatement. Okay, so thank you.